everybody, and welcome to today's DevOps Voices. Today we are joined by Irfan Shariff. Welcome, Irfan.
Hey, thank you, Dimitri. Excited to be here.
Fantastic. So Irfan is based in Toronto, Canada, and supporting his customers in digital transformations. Has been active in a variety of industry, primarily high tech, financial, and retail. And I think it's safe to say that Irfan's core expertise is in the agile, lean, DevOps, and design thinking domain. And if that isn't enough, Irfan is also a DevOps coach and an active speaker on events. So today, we want to talk about one of the 6 DASA DevOps principles, end-to-end responsibility. And we would like to uncover the link between software delivery and operational performance and this particular DASA principle. So, Irfan, thanks for joining us. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about this topic from you. And can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work at RTI Consulting Services?
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Dimitri. Thank you for the gracious introduction. And what you've told, I'll just expand on it a little bit in terms of my background, what I currently do, and my interest in DevOps and DASA, as well as some of the principles that I'm very familiar and passionate about within DASA, and how it ties into some of the work that is going on in outside organizations other than DASA, and how these principles matters to practitioners as well as organizations embarking on the DevOps journey. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the IT business for a bit, and from the days when IT was considered as a cost center to the current times where IT is and considered as central to organizational success. And I've had the good fortune of working across the entire life cycle of large IT initiatives, right across from the development phase to deployment and to operations. So it has given me a very broad overview of all the aspects involved in this end-to-end perspective, from an end-to-end perspective. And that's why, for me, embracing the DevOps way of working was a natural, because I had worked across the entire life cycle and had essentially been working the DevOps way even before it kind of became popularized. And obviously, when I was looking around for like-minded people, we had the good fortune of meeting each other, Dimitri, and we did some work here in Toronto in terms of meetups. And I was involved with the DASA team as an ambassador, advocating for DASA and DevOps, and trying to help both individuals and teams, as well as the larger organization, help make the transition to the DevOps way. And in terms of other things that relate to my sort of current work, I work as a consultant in the agile DevOps space, again, helping people improve their way of working in terms of both software delivery and operational performance. And with that, I think, as you said, going back to what you said, we want to focus this conversation on the DevOps principles, their importance, right, and then more specifically in the end-to-end view of things.
Yes, absolutely, Irfan, and thanks for your introduction. And so, for those listeners who are not that acquainted with the DASA principles, can you explain why they matter so much to teams and organizations who are, let's say, adopting DevOps principles?
Yeah, no, and certainly, and that's a great question, Dimitri. Essentially, why they matter in a nutshell is because DevOps is a new way of working. And to get to that new way of working requires a mindset and a cultural shift at an individual and a team level and an organizational level. These principles help in making that mindset shift and the cultural shift, which informs the everyday decision making and the actions we take at an individual and a team and an organizational level. So that is kind of in a nutshell is the value of these principles. Helps us make that mindset and cultural shift to embrace the DevOps way of working, and to just give you some examples to illustrate the point a little further. For instance, if you take, as you said, we have 6 principles within the DASA body of knowledge, and within that is the first principle is customer-centric action. So that kind of goes to the heart of what DevOps is all about, is keeping the customer at the center of our decision making and how we approach delivery of value. Similarly, we can talk a little bit more about and provide some additional examples. Does that resonate with you, Dimitri?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and with that sort of with if you look at the same sort of if you take the same approach and very quickly talk about the next principle, where it is to create with an end in mind. So this kind of goes again to the very core of what the DevOps way of working is, where we always have clarity of goals and what are we trying to achieve in terms of our business, technical goals. So it helps team have those conversations around what the end is, and that is always in top of our mind. And then again, there's this other fundamental principle, right, about end-to-end responsibility, and which essentially, and we'll talk a little bit deeper in the next a little bit later, but I think it's worth exploring because this is one of the foundational principles of DASA, is this end-to-end responsibility and taking a system-level view and focusing on system-level outcomes versus functional or team-level outcomes. And then there is cross-functional and autonomous team. Again, as the complexity of technology increases, we want to have teams empowered with the decision-making rights as well as the knowledge and the skills, right? So the people who have the knowledge, the skills, are now empowered to make decisions, the right decisions, and have that ability to react quickly to the demands of a very changing market and changing technology space. So again, that is a fundamental and a core principle of DASA, where we like to bring cross-functional teams together to help in delivering this end-to-end value, and then continue to implement. Yeah, certainly.
So Irfan, if I can take one step back, and because I mean we are also typically challenged to come up, what is your definition of DevOps? And then when we talk about our principles, and I mean learners or corporations, they understand this principle. They say, well, it's probably better to have principles than to have a definition. And let's say my question to you is, how do these principles drive behavior? Because in the end, it's also behavior that we would like to see. I mean, in this new way of working, what is your perspective on that link between behavior, driving behavior, and the principles that we work with?
Right. Yeah, and I think, Dimitri, just to dwell a little bit more on the definition of DevOps, I think there's varied definitions of DevOps, right? And we don't want to get caught in the debate around what's the right definition. But for very simplistically, from my perspective, is DevOps is working as one team across the organization to get technology work done. And that is the essence of what DevOps is. It breaks down cross-functional silos. Let's take a system-level view. Let's take an organizational view and get technology work done, because that's the most efficient way of doing it.
Right.
And to answer your question specifically around how these principles drive these behaviors, right, that are needed to have this one-team approach versus a functional or a siloed approach. For instance, if the customer is having a customer-centric sort of approach, means drives a behavior where the focus is more external rather than internal. our values, our behaviors are not dictated by what is of immediate benefit to us or the team or the function, but what is
Absolutely.
of value to the customer and the business, right? And again, the same thing, and that's where I think these are long-lasting principles that are being reaffirmed as with additional research that is being done in the industry, and essentially they drive that behavior shift, which results in a cultural shift on the way we do work. So that's what I believe is the value of these principles.
Right, and if we dive a little bit deeper into, let's say, end-to-end responsibility, where you have, as you said, one team responsible for one service, function, program, from, let's say, concept to grave. Can you explain a little bit more about, I mean, why is this so important to have this, let's say, concept and have those teams as a team fully accountable for their particular, let's say, service, product, etc.?
Yeah, sure. And I think one of the challenges we have encountered is that if we are not focused on the end-to-end view, we optimize for local goals, which means we are not optimized for a system level outcome, which is what delivers value to the business and to the customer. It's only when the customer is able to consume your service, your software-based service, will you derive some benefit from it as an organization. So I think the end-to-end principle is a very valuable sort of principle, which helps, one, internally break the silo, and two, shift the focus to system level outcomes versus local outcomes or functional or departmental outcomes. So
just to give you an example. Yeah, please go ahead, Irfan.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Dimitri and you and I have done it previously when HBR, Harvard Business Review, released a study on DevOps, and we went and took a deeper dive on the DASA and what and how that study reaffirms some of the DASA concepts. The idea with that report was that the DASA way, the DevOps way of working, drives organizational performance. That was the key finding. And now we have, and that was my cue as well for this conversation, to do a bit of analysis and get a reaffirmation from within within other research groups for DevOps related work. And this is kind of, and that's where I want to talk about the specific examples. And for our community of DevOps practitioners, how they can take this concept of end-to-end responsibility and tie it to system level metrics and outcomes that they can use with their teams and their customers to actually actualize the end-to-end responsibility.
Right. But give us the audience, give us one or two examples of typical, let's say, functional team performance metrics, and also share some examples of about more, let's say, system, more broader level performance metrics.
So, right, and from a functional sort of responsibility perspective, functional sort of metrics, right? You have the development teams, and by no means they're still important to measure your functional performance as well. It's not minimizing their requirement. It's just trying to see it in a broader perspective. So you have the dev team as one sort of team within the delivery cycle, and they perform their things could be lines of code written, or the velocity of the team, or the user stories completed. And then you might have the QA team, which are driven by the number of test cases completed, the number of defects found. And similarly, you might have the operational team, where the focus might be on ensuring the stability of the system and ensuring that the time to resolve incidents, or the number of incidents you have. So these are all output metrics. These are in the sense that they are measuring the output of each of these teams. And what the end-to-end principle and the outcome sort of metrics drive is the view at a system level. For instance, if you want to take how well we are doing in terms of software development, there is an outcome metric associated with that, and that is the throughput that is possible. So, for instance, what is our lead time for deployment into production from code commit to code released? So that is one metric that measures our throughput from a development perspective. And then there is this metric around how many deployments do we do? The deployment frequency is a throughput metric. And from a deployment perspective, from a release management perspective, there is the metric around, let's say, the number of changes, our change fail rate, right? For instance, the metric that talks to the stability of the system. And then there is how quickly can we recover from a failed change. So this is like, there's a throughput and stability. And then there is operational metric, which can be summarized as availability of the system. So having all these metrics helps you assess how well you're doing against your end-to-end responsibility. So as a team, that's the sort of the DevOps and the promise is that you can have both throughput, you can have both speed, and you can have stability. And it's not a trade-off. And to get to that is the challenge, as you can see within the DevOps organized way of working. So that is the journey, and that's where some of the work that you've been doing in terms of the training and the DevOps coaches plays into.
Irfan, I mean, it also reminds me about one of the sessions we did in Toronto on a DASA meetup, when we spoke about one of the reports on software delivery and operations. I think it came from DORA State of DevOps report. And what I also recall is that those metrics, I mean, those organizations who do it well also automatically do better on overall metrics like customer satisfaction, I mean, stock price, and there was a direct link between doing these things right that we're talking about and how the company as a whole performs.
And that is one of the things that has come across really clearly. And as you said, that was, I think, 2018 or 17, perhaps, the report, and the 2019 is the latest report that's out from DORA as well. And it just reaffirms that there is a statistically provable link between your ability to develop and deliver software and manage the software systems and organizational performance. And as you know, software is becoming central to the way any organization does business. So whether we like it or not, we are in the technology business and the software business. So obviously there is absolutely a direct correlation with the DevOps way of working, which is the end-to-end way of working, and organizational performance.
Absolutely. So Irfan, I also like to take a turn, I mean, and ask you about, because you were also DASA DevOps coach, participated in one of the coach programs. I mean, how do you see the role of DevOps coaching and in relationship to let's say DevOps transformations and maybe even related to this, let's say, end-to-end responsibility of teams?
Yeah, I think it just reaffirms a couple of things to me, Dimitri. One is the DevOps coach is a tough job because DevOps is tough. It's a journey you embark on, and it involves an organizational change and a transformation, and along with all the technology-driven change, there is a change in mindset and culture. So all of those things have to come together to have a successful transformation to a DevOps way of working. So what I can add to that is that from a DevOps coach perspective, and that's where I see my sort of 2 cents as recommendation or advice, is that we have to persist, have the tenacity to continue with the journey. And two is we have to be able to take some of the DASA DevOps principles and then be able to relate it to some metrics, which is again a core principle of the DASA body of knowledge, and have some defined metrics against which we can start measuring how well we are doing in terms of our throughput metrics, in our terms of our stability metrics, in terms of our service operation metrics. So I think we have a good sort of foundation with the DASA knowledge and the community. It's about building upon it to help customers get more value from it. Yeah.
And what do you think are the key skills that a DevOps coach needs? I mean, you already said it's a tough job, it's a challenging job, you know, bringing everything together and working with the teams and the individuals to get them towards better performance and to get them through that change. But in your opinion, what are let's say, the most important skills that a DevOps coach requires to be able to take on that challenging role?
Right, and I would sum it up in one sort of sentence. It is applying the DASA principle of continual improvement to yourself. Right. So you have to be continuously improving yourself, and have that learning mindset, because technology is changing rapidly. There is ways of managing is changing rapidly. So it's really important that you're focused to continually improve yourself by learning stuff that'll help you with your customers make this journey, because the customers are looking to you for that expertise, right? And sort of more specifically, right, in terms of skills that are needed from DevOps coach, apart from the training and the material that's provided, I think getting really familiar on the management side with the agile practices, the lean practices, the Kanban, and stuff related to getting work done at the ground level, as well as having the higher level view to look at things strategically, and do some scenario planning along with the business to help realize that sort of end state, as well as technology. I think technology is a great enabler, right? I think it helps, like for automation, it's the key, right? With cloud and the changes that are happening in that space, and every company is embarking on that cloud journey. Maybe it starts with a cost perspective, but really it's about delivering value and delivering software speed and scale and stability. So that's my sort of 2 cents is continually improve yourself and focus on both the management aspects and the technical aspects of DevOps.
I appreciate that one, and particularly on the first one. So before we close this podcast, so can you give us 1 or 2 tips and tricks? How can you, let's say, continue improve yourself? You know, never ending learning, always learning, lifelong learning. Can you share some of your tips and tricks? You know, how to remain on top of the game. What do you do?
Right, and I think one of the things that is we can all do our individual sort of learning, but I think one of the key things that I've found that helps in the learning and helps the learning make more actionable and more effective in the field is to work along with experts and work along with the community of like-minded people, and which is essentially kind of the draw for me with working with DASA. So you have like-minded people where we are sharing either war stories, things that went well, things that didn't go well, and learning from each other's experience, because obviously not everyone has the capacity to learn everything. We learn about what is most relevant to our customers, learn from each other, and I think working as a community, working as an expert, sharing knowledge helps us actually internalize that learning a lot faster and help us apply it in real life situations. So continual improvement for me and learning for me is working with like-minded experts and the broader community.
Excellent. And thanks for providing that opening to me, Irfan, because I mean, if you talk about stories, you know that we recently hosted a global enterprise leadership forum event where we actually capture the transformation journeys from enterprises around the world and share it within our DASA community. And that is certainly one of the angles to do it. And you're also in the ambassador network that you'll participate and contribute to. I think those are also very important networks as well within our community, where we keep each other sharp and make sure we push ourselves in the right direction. Irfan,
exactly.
It was a real pleasure talking to you. So thank you for joining DevOps Voices today. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great day ahead. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye for now.